Looch on Ice, we put it down each week. Puck drops hard, hear the fans all scream. From the highlight reels, we catch every peak. In the fast lane, we live the hockey dream. Stick handling magic, every move's a skill. Looch on Ice, we got the weekly scoop. From power plays to the hardest hits in the loop. Join the ride, feel that action, no excuse. NHL roundup with a hockey news crew. Goals and assists, the numbers never lie. From golden gloves to the rivalries that fly. On ice battles, real grit and we pride. With Looch on the mic, we rise to the sky. Every play's electric, they give us a thrill. Looch on Ice, we got the weekly scoop. From power plays to the hardest hits in the loop. On the ride, feel that action, no excuse. NHL roundup with a hockey news crew. The numbers never lie. From golden gloves to the rivalries that fly. On ice battles, real grit and we pride. With Looch on the mic, we rise to the sky. Every play's electric, they give us a thrill. Looch on Ice, we got the weekly scoop. From power plays to the hardest hits in the loop. Join the ride, feel that action, no excuse. NHL roundup with a hockey news crew. So lace up tight, let's roll with the fight. Looch on Ice, hockey vibes feeling right.
Hey, what's going on, Jeff?
What's going on? Oh, nothing really.
Happening?
Not much to talk about tonight, Looch.
Yeah, sure. We got lots to talk about tonight, man. Not good stuff, but
I'll say this about the Rangers. You know, they don't win cups, but they sure are interesting.
Yeah.
You know, for the wrong reasons. But anyway.
Unbelievable. It's a scary trade. I mean, you know, it kind of is what it is. Panarin had the cards in his hand, so I think Drury had his hands tied with the whole situation.
So as I told you earlier when we spoke, I was going to say on the air tonight that when I said, oh, the Rangers could get a haul for Panarin, whatever, a prospect, a first-round pick, that was speculation. That was premature because what I've seen over the past week is he's pretty much said he's only going to go where he gets 11 million. Someone is willing to sign him to an extension, and he wants 11 million a year, and that's going to limit the market for him.
Right.
As I told a friend of mine yesterday, you got to be like, there's a chance he might not even get traded because he holds all the cards, and he's not going to do him any favors, basically. So Molly Walker of the Post reported today that he told the Rangers the only team he'll accept a trade to is the LA Kings. So it put the Rangers in a position where they would either have to hold on to him and get nothing for him, or trading and get next to nothing for him. Because, I mean,
right.
As, Ranger fans I know are already starting. Oh, they got at least they got Green Tree. He's a high end prospect, and I'm like, no, he's not. He went late in the first round. He's a middle six guy, right? If he works out, right.
Right.
He's not an elite prospect. He's a guy, Look, let me take that back. A guy like him, you hope he develops into a good middle six guy and helps you win games. Maybe you got a lottery ticket and he ends up being a stud and better and out, playing the scouting reports. But we shouldn't be any illusions here. They got nothing for him, Yeah.
The only thing we could be thankful for is that Rangers didn't draft him and the LA Kings did. So maybe that's a good thing,
Well, as soon as I heard it, I said to my nephew who texted me, oh, boy, the media and the fans are going to be all over Drury,
Oh, yeah.
And, I said to my son, I'll say it here on the air. It's hard to let me go back. I don't think they should fire him. And in case, people haven't heard why, let me state why. I don't think he's been that bad. He's done some good. He's done some bad, right? And I'm a big believer, right? When you fire a guy after 3 or 4 years, it sets you back again because then they got to come in and bring their guys in and the way they evaluate players and the scouts, and now you got to throw it all over again. And that's why the Rangers have one of the reasons Rangers haven't won a cup at all. This is what they do. I'd ask any fan out there, okay, so let's fire Drury. Who are you hiring?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Now, with that said, I also understand the people who think Drury should be fired. I understand why they're saying that. They're not wrong, right? Not necessarily. It's not off the wall. They have a good case. I just disagree with it because they're not thinking of the ramifications because they go by what they read, or and when you really look at it, he hasn't been that bad. But you know what? Maybe I'm being a little inflexible with my thought process where I say, you know what? I don't think it's worth firing him for whatever. So maybe maybe they're right and I'm wrong. I'll definitely open the possibility. And if they fired him tomorrow, it's not like I'd say, oh, fuck, we got, he's unproven at best, And I have a hard time saying this because I sound like an apologist for him, but whatever. I don't know what he could have done differently to make this outcome. If anybody wants to tell me, I'm open. Maybe I'm not seeing something, and but at the same time, this makes him look really bad. Really bad.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions or wants to throw anything up, throw it up in the chat. Just throw it up there, and we'll see it, and we'll try to answer it if we can. And
tell me why I'm wrong and why you think Drury should be fired. And don't give me the cliches. Don't give me what you read in the media. Give me a real reason, because I could give you reasons why he's not. People talk about the Bushnevich trade. Yeah, terrible trade. Okay, we all know that was his first trade. The Trocheck signing was a great signing. So was Gavrilov. He made great moves at the deadline 3 years ago, right, to get us into the Eastern Conference Finals. He traded Trouba, right, who they said they'd never get rid of his contract, and got something for him. And by the way, it was the fans who made the reason he had to trade him, because he couldn't play in New York anymore. So he's done some good, he's done some bad. The Miller trade people want to point to, as I said to my son today, listen, I know Miller hasn't worked out, and I understand that. There's still time. But, okay, I would rather have JT Miller, okay, even at the cost of that first-round pick, than have Philip Hedl and his $6 million a year for another 5 years sitting in the stands, right?
Yeah,
and you and I both know, okay, if Hedl was still here and they didn't make that trade, okay, the fans would be, and the media would be screaming, oh, Drury should have never signed him. He's making $6 million a year. Or he should have traded him when he had value. Instead, he held on to him. So once there's a narrative on someone and the media turns on him, the fans, they're like lemmings going off a cliff, right? And they don't think for themselves. So everybody just starts, oh, you should be fired. Okay.
Right.
Fire him. I'm not going to shed a tear over him, but I've seen this my whole life with the Rangers. Fire that guy. They couldn't wait to fire Craig Patrick and Ted Sater because they all wanted Espo. Espo's a winner. He brought us to the finals when they got here. He'll build a Stanley Cup winner. And it was a complete and total disaster, and lasted 1.5 years and set the organization back, right?
Right.
Fire Sater. Fire this guy. Fire that guy. Whatever.
Yeah, we know that Drury and the Rangers had no leverage with this trade. Panarin was basically holding all the cards. He obviously he just wanted to go to LA. I saw talks of Capitals. I saw talks of San Jose. Actually, I would have hoped that he went to Jose with the San Jose with the trade that you were talking about with Misa and a couple of draft picks. Would have been probably better than this one. But I mean, the only thing we could do is hope for, like you said, with Liam Greentree becomes a decent player. I mean, who knows? We'll see what happens. Anything could happen.
About a first-round pick, a prospect, and whatever was based on speculation in the media on other trades. Okay, and you know what? It wasn't off the mark. That's what you would expect. The problem is, right? He limited their options, right? San Jose and Washington could offer all kinds of goodies, right? But he wasn't going there. And the way to get value for someone is he's in demand, right? But when he told them, I don't want to go to LA, what are they going to do? And I ask anybody, tell me what he was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Tell me what he's supposed to do. Look, he got anything for him. LA's going to say, fuck you. We're going to sign him in the spring. Don't worry about it. Right? What are they going to do? They're looking to get what they got. And, and then people are going to say, oh, he should have acted cool. It wouldn't have mattered. No, it wouldn't have. He had all the cards. He had the leverage. He made it clear he was going where he wanted to go. That's it. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
What is Jory supposed to do? I know it's disappointing, and I know like with his track record, people aren't going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not even saying give a benefit of the doubt. This is an absolute fact, right? It's an absolute fact. So
All it does for the Rangers. Well, we got Liam Greentree was in part of the trade. We got a conditional 26 third-round pick and a conditional 2028 fourth-round pick. And we're holding 50% of his contract, right? Is that what I think that was the last thing that they threw out there? And then Panarin goes and signs a 2-year extension with LA, so he'll be staying in LA, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is. Believe me, I'm sick of.
But I don't know what could have been done differently.
No, right? I hear you. Believe me, I'm sick over the whole Panarin thing. From day one, I'm going to have a Panarin jersey. I just thought he was a great asset to this team for 7 years that he was with the team. He's one of the best players that that we've had in a while. And a great guy.
He's signing in Ranger history, hands down.
What's that?
He's the best free agent signing in Ranger history, hands down.
Right.
Now people say Messier, but Messier was a trade. Remember, it wasn't a free agent signing. So Gretzky was pretty good.
Right.
3 years, but what? And again, I asked Ranger, what was he supposed to do? He had one team, right? He's lucky he got that. That's why he retained salary. What if LA said, "No, we're just going to give you a second-round pick"? What was he going to do? Not trade him? Then what happened? Well, for what?
Right. Then he goes for nothing.
Right. What was he going to do? LA could have said, "We're not giving anything," right? And then and then they keep him. But to get what he got, right? So if you don't want to take that, Ranger fans, what should he have done?
Right. So we're still talking. I mean, I guess the Rangers are still throwing names out there. You got Trocheck and Schneider that are still in the mix. That's going to not be handled, I guess, until after the Olympic break and then before the March 6th deadline. So we'll see what happens with that. Who knows? Maybe Trocheck will be a little bit easier. Rangers will have more leverage with Trocheck if they decide to get rid of Trocheck. I mean, what are your thoughts? You think that Trocheck's gone too by the end of the way it sounds?
It's hard to predict. I would think yes. It's hard to predict because they're going about this the wrong way. But we'll get that in a second. Trocheck will theoretically would bring more, even when we thought Panarin was going to bring in a haul. He's got 2 years left on his contract. It's only $6 million a year with the cap gone up, right? By the way, that he signed that guy at that contract and he got ripped for it, for being overpaying him, but whatever. Centers are in demand, and there will be several teams that will line up, or want him. So then you can play off each other and negotiate. He's only got a 10-team no movement clause, so he can pick and choose where he has some leverage over where he's going to go. So I would hope they would trade him. Now, if they don't get an offer they like, or that's I wouldn't just give him away. I would keep him because he has value to the team. He's a good player.
Right.
But if what's speculated is that he's in demand and they get something for him, they have to trade him. Like they have to, and they have to. But you know what? If you want to take issue with Drury on something, and again, this probably comes from Dolan, whatever. Like as I said last week, there's no half measures. All right. Like as a friend of mine said, I retool. He is a tool. Like it's like trying to hit the lottery, trying to retool on the fly. And my son was saying this morning, the Miller trade. What if they're going to retool and trade these guys away? Why did they sign Gavrikov? Why did they trade for Miller? And I said those are fair points. And I don't believe in a retool. If you're going to go, do it all the way. Tear it down and rebuild, okay? Because it's again, half measures. So how are they going to build a championship contender on the fly? I haven't known anybody who's done it, You have to look. And then my nephew said, yeah, they'd fuck up the draft picks. They're going to fuck up the draft picks anyway. And I said, well, probably, based on history, I can't say they wouldn't. But that doesn't mean you don't do it, right? Just they have to try and get it right.
Yeah,
but the alternative. Go ahead, sorry.
No, we're 75% into a rebuild already. I mean, geez, all of the guys that we got rid of, and then Panarin. I mean, you get rid of one of your best players, and then if you're talking Trocheck and Schneider, where are we at? what do you got left? There's not a whole
Well, you
lot
got
left.
Miller, you got
Yeah.
Nika, you signed Gavrikov.
Yeah.
So it's not a full-on teardown, right?
Right.
But it should be. All right? It should be because well, as I said, by making these trades, they're going to have the assets in the cap room. So when somebody comes available, I'm pretty sure that Kachuk is going to want out of there. I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
That's the only way to
he'll be available. We've talked about Robertson. I'm skeptical. Why would Dallas want to trade him? I don't know. They got their reasons, but and there's always somebody who becomes available you're not thinking of right now, right? Or isn't available. So
right.
So you got to be in position. But if you're going to half-ass it and try and rebuild on the fly, right, and get and be a team that just misses the playoff or just makes the play, you're going to draft in the middle of the first round, right? You're going to end up signing guys to use the cap room that might not work out. It just go all the way, So I would trade Trocheck. I would trade Schneider either way while he still has value. Look, I'm not knocking the kid. He's an okay defenseman, right?
Yeah.
But he's okay, right?
Yeah,
And you have to pay that kid $6-7 million a year. And we've had this conversation before. You know what I have to say. I'm my whole life but you don't want to trade a guy like that. He could turn into a stud. He's got to and I've heard that my whole life. And 99 out of 100 didn't turn out to be a stud. That's the risk you take. So he's already proven to be an okay player. If he's overvalued, which it seems like he is, then trade him. Sell high. That's what I would say. But you have to keep him. The same with Trocheck. I wouldn't give him away, right? But if there's value, trade him.
Right. Yeah. No. So what do you think we see this kid Liam Greentree by the end of the season? Maybe they throw him into the lineup and just see where he's at and
that's a good
see
question.
how he does.
I'm trying to remember if he's an 05 or an 06. I think he's an 06, so he might still be.
He's a 20-year-old kid.
Might be playing in college.
He's an 06. He's in the OHL Windsor Spitfire.
Okay.
He's a big kid.
Depends on his OHL team if they don't make a deep run in the playoffs, or if he doesn't get traded to a team that is going to make a deep run. Maybe you'll see. I'm sure they would like to. Well, then again, maybe not. They might not want to sign him to an entry-level contract and burn a year for a couple of games. So
34 games. He's got 23 goals with 45 points in the OHL, the Windsor Spitfire. So
not a dynamic offensive player. He's got it, but he does have a heavy shot. Like he's a sniper. He can score, from shooting from a lot of different places. He's not a bad skater. He's a reliable two-way player, but he's not,
I've heard
it this way. It's not like, I hope they could get, Liam Greentree in a deal for Panarin,
Right. I heard he was a little feisty too at times. He could be a little bit like they compared him to Milan Lucic. So if he's anything like Milan, if he's what's that?
I don't think he's as big as Lucic.
No, he's 6'3", 216. So
I was going to say he's not small, but you know what? That's big actually. That's much bigger than I thought he was. Than I remember
for a young kid. Yeah. Let's get him in the lineup. I'd like to see him, towards the end of the season and throw him in there a couple games. Listen, the Rangers are in last.
Do you want to burn a year on his entry-level contract for a couple of games?
Yeah, I guess you have to do that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I got you.
But I'll say this: he's a Chris Drury type player. For the first time in my life as a Ranger fan, they have a GM who's looking to draft big, gritty guys. Who play a heavy game, who are in your face, right? And that's why I like Drury.
Yeah. Let's keep it going that way.
I don't know. I'm certainly not the hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah. Well,
so
listen,
Jeff, if you either die or Chris Drury, gets fired. See you, Chris.
This trade will look a lot better when Brady Tkachuk is signed with the Rangers.
Let's hope so, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
I don't want to sound like I'm an apologist. I'm not, because in my opinion, and people are going to say this is Sunday morning quarterbacking, and there's some truth to it. But I think I told you this story. After we got eliminated by Florida, we were out to dinner, me, my nephews, my friend Pat, my my son, talking about the Rangers, and I said, we talked about who they get, what they need to do, and I said, you know what I would do? I would probably start over, tear it down. And everyone's, oh, you can't do that. Then these kind of funds. I was like, I get that. I do. I'm not, and now 2 years later, I'm not going to say I was adamant, I just threw it out there. And the more I thought of it, it made sense. But if you want to be a successful GM or franchise, you have to have the courage of convictions, and you have to be visionary. You have to have a vision or see things and be honest, make an honest evaluation. Right. And I think to some extent Drury did, but that's when they should have said, you know what? This team has run its course. We're not going anywhere with them. It's time to really start, let's start retooling now, tear it, whatever. Because that core was not going anywhere. It got as far as it could. They were lucky to get as far as they did. And they waited, right? And then they were reactionary instead of being proactive,
Yeah, get some more cap space. Let's see what happens over the summertime and in the off season. Maybe next year we go into the season looking a little bit better than we look right now, because we look terrible, basically in last place. That's where they're going to stay. I don't see them winning maybe a handful of games,
especially without Panarin now.
I know it's like, you look at the lineup, you're like, where is it? Like. You see JT Miller, and he's had a so-so season this year, not a very good season. Mika's been on fire. He's the only one. I mean, you got your Sturkins hurt, you got Fox hurt, so it's a perfect time to do what they're doing. I would say. I mean,
I don't think there's any choice.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you want to criticize Drury for anything, and it's fair criticism. If you want to be a successful GM, you have to have a successful GM would see his team for what it is and not be reactionary and be proactive. And maybe if they traded Panarin last summer, he goes somewhere else, whatever, and they get more for him. And or like it just, they seem to be doing it half-assed when, in my opinion, right? And again, I'm not the GM. And if I was, maybe I would have thought differently. I wouldn't have had the courage of my convictions. But being honest about it, I looked at that team and said, I don't see. I had hope, I said on my forum, maybe they decide to get this, another player like this, whatever, blah blah. I don't know where that guy's going to come from, but what I really, and any scout or GM will tell you, the ones I talk to, you got to have the courage of your convictions and believe what you see. And to me, I really, what I was really looked at it and being honest, I thought the best move was to start unloading guys, and not just Trouba and Goodrow, like really start, being proactive and make some moves, because this team had run its course,
Right.
Now, right. Panarin's a sunk cost. Like, they got nothing for him. Who knows what Mika, So we should pray that Mika, somebody wants him, but he might not go anywhere, he might say no.
I'm getting incoming call here, and it's ringing through my.
What are they saying?
You there? Okay.
I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, I had an incoming call, and it was coming through on my computer, so I couldn't hear anything. All I heard was a phone ringing on my end.
Well,
let
me say this about the Rangers, retool or rebrand, and again, this is a big if, especially with them, but it always is with prospects. If, Green Tree works out and Malcolm Spence works out, to their valuation or other valuation, and same with Emery and some of the other guys they got in the minors, like Noah Labo, or they brought up, and Cooley, they have the middle six, like the bottom nine, right? Set, like they're really good there, and then I'll have some of those guys to trade, including deals. They got the top pair figured out with Gavrikov and Fox. They got the goalie, right? They just got to figure out, the top line. And by the way, that's the hardest thing to do,
Right.
Which is why this speculation that Matthews might be available is absolutely freaking nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't believe it.
Austin Matthews.
Yeah, well, this speculation that because they're out of the playoffs and they're gonna completely, rebuild or whatever. I don't see that. Why would you? You know,
Yeah.
You want to tear it down, fine. Build it around Austin Matthews. I promise you, when you're ready to win again, you're gonna be looking for a guy like him. You know, I would, and Nylander. I would not even, and I don't think they are. I mean, it also would be stupid that they held on to him this long and then they trade him. You know, I don't see it. But if he's available, go get him, Rangers, if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, Panarin going to LA definitely helps that team. They're looking to get in the playoffs. I think they're like 1 or 2 points out of a wild card spot in the Western Conference. They're looking to make a little bit of a push and get in the playoffs. I think it helps them a little bit. Panarin, you know, he's not a
player.
big. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was looking at the lines for the LA Kings. I'm just trying to figure out where they're going to put him. Maybe in Corey Perry's spot on the top line with looks like Alex Laferriere and Adrian Kempe, maybe.
Jersey kid.
So,
well,
who's that? Alex Laferriere?
Yeah, he's from Jersey.
Oh, he is. Okay, nice.
Plays for the Colonials. So, what I've been reading is that they were looking for somebody to replace Kopitar, who retires at the end of the year. So they got the replacement for him. But I haven't been. I've been so busy. I've been able to read it. But did you say he got a 2-year extension?
He got a 2-year extension. Yeah, he signed it right. I guess right after the deal.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe if he would have accepted that from us, I don't know if I would have traded him then.
Right. It's just
you know, I don't know what the cap room is. You know, like. But my concern was signing him for 4 years, right? Because when a 2-year extension, you know, maybe they need to think about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought the Rangers originally said that Drury said that he didn't want to. They weren't going to sign him to an extension. So, you know, but
that's assuming like he wanted 4 years, or you know.
Right. I agree.
Got him to sign for 2 years. Why wouldn't he sign 2 years? And you know, I have to think about it a little bit, look at the cap space and all that before I say for sure. But now I'm thinking about it. Maybe they should have held him. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, unless the Rangers are thinking of a longer term something for next year, or you know, in the off season, you know, maybe they have their eyes on somebody. Let's hope. And well,
look, there's a lot of things that teams and know that we don't. Right. Like, you know, let's just say a hypothetical out there. Brady Tkachuk, his agent, let it know to the Rangers he wants to come here. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying hypothetically he wants to come here, right? So
fingers crossed.
Right. Well, I thought that about Capri Closed-Off, and I was wrong. But you know what? Even if there's not that, you know, hey, you know, you want to be in position, right? And one of the things that Drury doesn't get enough credit for is he refrained from signing these, you know, 2 years ago, Jonathan Marchessault and this guy and that guy, right? And tying the cap up for a couple of years, right? And he got criticized then. And, you know, and for the 50th year in a row, the media declared the team, you know, it was this year, it was Nashville, the winner of the offseason, because they signed this guy, that guy. And I was saying, well, like every other time the media did this, 6 months from now, they're going to be, oh, they had a terrible offseason. Those contracts are bad now, you know? So, you know, he refrained from doing that. You know, he kept the cap space, and he's been disciplined. And look, we all know, you know, how many times the Rangers in the past would let the money would burn a hole in their pocket, you know, and they, you know, to make a splash or to see the fans they were doing something, they go give some 35-year-old guy, you know, overpay him, and who wasn't good, you know. So
yeah.
Sometimes the best moves are the ones you don't make.
Right.
So people don't understand.
Well, I had Steven put together or find a highlight reel of our man Panarin. So let's see if Steven's. Yeah, let's see if we could.
Is this the one the Garden did?
I'm not sure the exact one that this is. This is from last year. So
shows you how solid Bud Golden is. Off front near the steal, quick snapshot score. Panarin through Romanov. Now it's Trocheck and Panarin in a 2-on-1. Vinny Trocheck, Artemi Panarin, and it's a far no contest. Stepping up, Fox. Panarin fires, scores. There's a chance for Panarin to break away. He does. Panarin moves in. Panarin scores! Rangers onside. Here's Panarin with a shooting angle, and he scores! Shot away. Now back up top. And Buckanainen stick fractures. Panarin buries crazy. Here's Panarin. He'll shoot, and he will. Adam Fox's pass was broken up. Rangers turned it again. Here's Panarin in. 2-on-1 down low. He scored!
It's a hard-fought first period.
I think this is actually all of his goals from the season.
In this season?
I think from last season.
They tip and they score! Oh, they scored. Oh, from behind the net. 2 points in each of his first 2 games. In his return to the Rangers, shot by Panarin. He scored. And goal. 2-1. Flyers lead it. Panarin in. Panarin to the net. He scores.
Great hands. Pure goal scorer.
Riley Smith.
Yeah.
With Trocheck. Save. Rebound. And score. Philadelphia today. He and Lane Hudson of Montreal is off tonight. And there's a shot by Panarin. Knocked away by Carey. Closing is Kesselring. And it'll go to Panarin, and he ices it. Will Borgen goal. Long shot by Trocheck. Save, rebound, score! Fox.
On Star Wars.
Zibanejad save, Markstrom, rebound, score! Morgan looking toward the net. Fires one down low for Lafreniere. Panarin along with Trocheck. Panarin shoots and scores.
Counter quickly now as Perron tries to keep it in, but they'll break free. Rudzinski ahead. Now a chance. Panarin, a shot. He scores.
He is, as he said, here's Panarin moving in. Big drive. He scores. Pass from Zibanejad. Left side Miller. Now Zibanejad to Panarin. The shot. He scores. Zibanejad to Fox. Fox down low. Trocheck at the top of the crease. Panarin scores.
They're huge every moment of the game.
Panarin with a shot, and he scores.
His rookie season.
It took him under his wing, and he's always spoken highly of him.
Panarin scores.
Yep, there it is.
By the way,
Panarin's-
before we move on about Panarin, I want to say something, right? To the Ranger fans out there. Don't, all of them crying, their crocodile tears here, and Krillin Drury. These are the same people who 2 years ago wanted to run him out of town and said he can't play in the playoffs. He's not a tough player. He's soft, blah, 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 blah. Now all of a sudden he's fucking Wayne Gretzky when they have to trade him. It's typical Ranger fans. We got the receipts, okay? So stop.
Yeah.
Listen, I appreciated him for what he was. I thought the criticism of him in the playoffs was bullshit. Okay. But the same fans who are crying right now, and by the way, some of them have the gall, by the way, to criticize the Trouba trade. Like, what the fuck? As I said to my son today, he was talking about how, he said this at the time of the trade, that Miller's not a culture guy like people give him credit for. He's up and down. He often doesn't, he gets lost mentally or whatever. Doesn't, play with the passion. He wasn't, and he cited Trouba and Kreider and guys like that. And I said, well, listen, everybody loved Kreider. I said, but Drury had no choice to trade Trouba, and that was the fans' fault. They made it impossible for him to play here because he became their whipping boy, and it was unwarranted, right? And it was always counterproductive. Right now, gave away Trouba. Look what he's doing in Anaheim. Shut up, please. Enough. Just shut up. And already, Liam Drury's a high-end prospect. Yeah, sure he is. They don't know. They didn't know who the guy was until an hour ago.
I didn't know who he was either. I saw the name.
That's what I'm saying. He's a high-end prospect. That's how I know they didn't know who he was when they said that. I'm like,
right.
Prospect. Like, this just they obviously don't know what you're talking about. Like,
right.
High-end prospect.
Well,
what'd you say? He's like 40-something points in the OHL, right?
Yeah. Let's hope he's a good player, a decent player at that.
But that's his ceiling. Your hope is that he's a gritty guy who gets you 30 goals a year, right?
Right.
Maybe you hit lightning in a bottle, but he's not a high-end prospect,
Right. Yeah, with
and
34
by the way,
games, 23
you need guys
goals.
like him to win. That's how you get those guys.
Yeah, right? Sure. Guys to be out there that aren't going to get banged up like a Hedel and a Panarin. Panarin's a small guy. He ain't going out there and banging people and hitting people. I mean, you got Trocheck that could do that. He's a lot more gritty. And I like some of these other kids that they got. Bedard. I like Bedard. He gets out there and he's not afraid to hit. He's a small kid. He's not going to do a whole hell of a lot, but I like him as a prospect
that's
coming
what I
up.
was saying before. They got the depth forwards now, right?
He's got a lot of energy.
Third and fourth liners. They got some size. They can skate. They bring a lot to the table. And if Greentree and Spence hit their ceiling, right now, you got two really good. Spence might even be a first liner, but you got two really good, solid forwards who are going to score 20 to 25 goals a year. Play both ends of the ice and be physical. Right now, what you need is to get the centers who are going to create the offense and be the studs. Easier said than done.
Yeah, we'll have a.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
So
I'm just gonna.
when the fans were criticizing Panarin after the Florida series, again, I thought it was bullshit. It's made up by fans that don't know what they're talking about. Oh, he's soft. You don't know what you're talking about. Like, if you ask him why he's soft, oh, he plays on the perimeter. I'd say, okay, show me where, right? And they wouldn't. They just make shit up and they repeat what they say, or somebody else says. But people pointed out that all right, so he doesn't score in the playoffs. That's quite arguable, but the facts say otherwise. You still got to get in the playoffs, right?
Right.
So they wanted him out of here. He's soft. You'll never win with him. Okay. So I get rid of him. What are you getting for him? Like, he's an elite goal scorer, right?
Yeah.
And you see those goals. There's a handful of guys who can score from those areas where he scores, right? Again, to beat NHL goalies. That's elite, right? Those guys don't grow on trees. So where you getting now they're going to see what life is, just like Toronto fans. Couldn't wait to get rid of Marner, right? People pointed out, well, you know what? You still got to make the playoffs, and they're not,
Yeah.
Everybody likes to jump on a guy and label him. And, as how many guys throughout my, in history that my son and I were talking about this the other day. There was a guy, right, not long ago, a few years back, right, who had a terrible first round. His team got swept, right, against the lower seed. Despite all him and all the talent, right, they hadn't won a cup to that point. They're disappointing. And the national media and the local media and the fans are, you got to get rid of this guy. He's too immature, right? He'll never win. He's not a winner. He's not a playoff performer. And you got to get rid of him. You know who that guy was? Nikita Kucherov.
Oh, geez.
A year later, he wins the Conn Smythe and they win the 2 Stanley Cups. Right?
Yeah.
People forget about that, but I don't. Oh, he's immature. He's and how many guys over the years have we heard this about? Don't get me started on Sergei Zubov, right? Because he's proven and won a Stanley Cup. And Colin Campbell couldn't wait to get rid of him because he's soft or whatever. It's just he can't win. You can't win with that guy. How many guys have we seen that over the years? Can't win with that guy, and then they win. I don't know.
I'm curious to see how this Rangers team pans out the next month or so with the draft, with the trade deadline looming, and then after this Olympics. I guess a lot of stuff will happen during the Olympics, but won't come out until after it's all said and done, and then we'll see if Trocheck hangs around and Schneider hangs around, and we'll see what it's going to be all about with the Rangers going into the end of the season.
The good news is, hopefully the Rangers will finish higher in the lottery. I don't know. Even there's some really good players at the top of this draft. If you could get in, if you're in the top 5 or top 4, there's very little difference between I'm trying to think of the other 2 guys, but Sternberg and McKenna and the other 2 defensemen from North Dakota, and one other guy who's moved up the center. There's very little difference, or not. I should say those all project to be really good players. So you could get, like you could get the Rangers have a chance to get a good player if they don't fuck up his development after they take him. But you know what, you don't want to be in the top. It's not the type of draft where you're in the top of the draft. Like, oh shit, who are we going to take? McKenna was the consensus number 1 pick for a year and a half, and over the last month or 2, maybe longer than that, every scouting report, mock draft, or ratings on any of the guys I read, the big guys, these are the top guys, have all dropped them, to 4th now.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be dropping even more, maybe.
Oh, 100%. And their concerns are, I think we've talked about this. He's lazy, right? Away from the puck. He's disinterested, which is a big problem. He, to the point where, and this is a very big tell about a kid like this. He was at the World Junior Championships, so it was a couple of months ago, whatever it was. And every scout in the world is there. Every one of them. We're watching. And they had these concerns about him, about his play away from the puck, his lack of attention or hustle on the defensive end. And late in the game, late in the third, he basically watched as I think it was Sweden where they played what up and scored the game winner. Made no effort to get back, and he could have stopped the play. None. And every scout in the world was watching him, right?
Right.
Like, first of all, you can't hide, but if you can't, if you're gonna, come up, if you're not gonna hustle or play hard in the World Junior Championship in the third period with the whole world watching, that's a big red flag. I was unsure about him. I think I said it on the podcast. I said it to my son for a while. Like, look, I get it. He's super skilled. Maybe the scouts are overreacting to him, right? Maybe he's, he'll like sometimes kids grow up, they find that, or he's so skilled it won't matter. So, but my point was, boy, oh boy, they can't fuck this up. They can't end up, drafting a kid and it not work out. So I was leery of it, but whatever. Now I have all the evidence in the world. I wouldn't touch him unless it's in the middle of the first round. They should go nowhere near him. Okay.
Yeah.
Because so if he can't control himself, so if somebody's chirping about his mom in a bar in college, okay, how's he going to handle the NHL?
Yeah.
Right. And I get it. What the guy said was offensive, right? But you know what? Like we talked about, if that was my son, I'd say, hey, moron. Okay, we've talked about this. Okay. Everybody in the world, there's 100 guys like that in a bar and a place every night, wherever you go in the Chipotle in the afternoon, who would like nothing more than to provoke you into something, right? Because because it makes them feel good about themselves that they do. And now, you know what? You're going to be paying that guy a settlement, a lot of money, right? I don't know what it's going to. He broke his jaw. You got arrested. Brilliant job, buddy. So now that asshole, you just gave a guy who's a complete fucking asshole who chirped your mom free money. Something you've worked for your whole life, right? That guy, by acting like an asshole and provoking you just handed all that money over to him, right? So, and if you can't control yourself, right? Why would anybody ever trust you and draft you? I wouldn't,
Right.
And like I said, if he can't handle himself now, that's a big red flag. And, I know a few people that was 18 years old. Bullshit. Okay. The kid has been in the spotlight since he was 14 years old, right? He knew he was headed, to the NHL. Okay. He's been a target his whole life, right? He should know better. Okay. I don't care that he's 18 years old, right? He should know better. I guarantee you his agents, his coaches, and anybody else have warned him his whole life. Don't take the bait. Okay. And for him to do this, 3 months away from going in the draft, think about it. Think about what he put in red. That's a guy you want to bet on, not me.
Yeah. They're charging him with first degree felony aggravated assault.
I'll say this much though for him. At least he made it count, breaking the guy's jaw. Right? He got his money's worth.
Right.
But he got something out of it.
Yeah.
And wow, dude, you showed him. He chirped your mom. You showed him, right?
Right. Yeah.
He's going to be living on the beach in retirement off of your money. Okay.
Who's on the losing end of that deal?
Yeah. You worked hard your whole life. Your whole life you worked to play in the NHL and make that kind of money. That guy, within 2 minutes, he basically just went in your back pocket and pickpocketed you. Okay. He baited you into something and you took it. He's laughing all the way to the bank, right?
I think it was a little too much partying after the outdoor game up there in Pennsylvania. That was after the outdoor game for the at Penn State's Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, and listen, there was a time in this country where you could get away with something like that. Charles Barkley threw a guy through a window,
Right.
And he had no problem punching somebody out. But you can't do that anymore,
No.
And no matter how right you are, you're still the asshole,
Yeah.
I would say it this way. Listen, the guy's an asshole. We all know that. He tripped your mom, right? Congratulations, right? You got baited by an asshole, okay? So what does that say about you? Because as fucked up as he is, he's smarter than you, right?
Yeah.
He baited you, and you were too dumb to walk away. And, I don't want to condemn anybody around him, but, a kid like that is supposed to have somebody around him, right? So this doesn't happen. He's made millions already in NIL money, right?
Yeah. But, so we got We got Gavin McKenna, who's going to be charged with a felony, and the Kings should be charged with a felony for stealing Panarin from the Rangers.
Well, or really in that case, it was Panarin was embezzling because he gave himself away.
Yeah. Oh God. Jeez, what a disaster.
And I'm telling
We're going.
Sorry, but one more thing, like the Rangers, they do their homework, or any team does. They know more about it than we would. But based on what I know, I wouldn't go anywhere near that guy. In New York, no, it's just not worth it.
Right.
You show that kind of bad judgment, like he's too much of a risk. And listen, 10 years from now, people might be saying, "Oh, the Rangers passed over McKenna, he's going to the Hall of Fame."
Yeah, right. He'll be a Celebrini type player.
As talented as he is, but listen, kids could grow up, they make mistakes and all that, right? But based on what I know now, he's too much of a risk. Rangers can't fuck this up,
Right.
Now, if he dropped down to the middle of the first round, that's a different story, And this is not like Cole Iserman, who dropped from the top 5 down to the Islanders fucking got him, but I don't, because of concerns about his play on the ice and stuff. That was overblown, and it was really subjective, a lot of it, and it outweighs the good stuff he did. So scouts put too much emphasis on it, and that's what scouts do. They talk themselves out of a player many times. This is straight up stupidity, and there's no accounting for stupidity. Like, to do this, it's such a bad thing that he did that you can't just excuse it. He knows better than this. But
right,
and when you add all the other stuff about him, right? It's a big red flag.
Yeah, I agree. Stay away from him. Let's see who else they got in that draft. I'm sure there's plenty of guys, plenty of kids that'll be available.
If you're drafted high up in the draft, you get a good player. You're going to get a good player. As where last year's draft wasn't very good. After the first couple of players, it dropped off, and that's something fans don't get too. Like, when a kid's drafted in the first round, you call him a first round draft pick, and you say, oh, not all first round draft picks are the same, right? In a draft where a guy goes 15, right? In that same draft, same kid 2 years later might go in the second round because of the type of depth in the draft, and like we've talked about, Laffy. He should be better than this. He's a disappointment, but he wasn't Bedard or Jack Hughes when the Rangers were drafting there,
No.
And the thing is like, so if you look at that draft year, you can't criticize them for taking him because everybody would have taken him. There's nobody who said they would. A few people said, well, you know what? They should take Byfield, because he's a big, strong center and they need that. There was a case to be made for that, but the value, the valuation on him was much different. But he's not anything special. 40-point guy. The best player in that draft, too, is Moritz Seider, the stud defenseman for Detroit, who, by the way, right, they got ripped for drafted him too high, like they drafted him in the top 10. So nobody thought he was going to be that good. But most of and Stultz, if they had to do over again, they take him. He's a better player than Laffy, but he's not Jack Hughes. He's not Bedard, right?
Right.
So it'll be the Rangers' luck. There'll be 4 top-end players, let's say, in this draft, right? And there'll be a drop-off, and the Rangers will get the 5th pick. You watch.
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, God. What another disaster. Yeah, it's just ironic that, the Panarin trade goes through, and then all of a sudden the Gavin McKenna news breaks, on the same day. It's a little disappointing. Because you're like, okay, they got rid of Panarin. Let's see, who we're going to get in the draft. Maybe they'll get a good high draft pick. And now you see what happens with Gavin McKenna, and you're like, shit. What are you going to do? But
I look at it a little differently. It's good news to me because when I've talked to my son about it, and I'm like, boy, that guy scares me. What I read about him. It might be overblown. It might, he might be a great player and all that, and it might be much ado about nothing. Whatever. And he turns out to be a great player. But boy, oh boy, he scares me, right? Like, I don't know. And to not hustle in that moment like he did and to let them score the game-winning goal, that's just that's just nothing. It's inexcusable.
Hopefully this is a learning experience for him and he learns his lesson and turns it around. We can only hope.
The reason I'm saying it's good news is that it leaves no doubt for me None.
Right.
But I wouldn't touch him.
No.
It confirmed the worst fears I and everybody else had about it. I wouldn't touch him.
Yeah.
I don't care how good he turns out to be. Because I'll tell you right now, like if you follow the way I'm thinking, which scouts do, you're going to be right way more than you're wrong. If you have questions, I've said this my whole life about hockey. Talent without character is useless. Okay, it doesn't matter how talented you are. Look, if you don't have the character, you're not going to go. Look at Evander Kane, and many others. Right? It doesn't matter. So yeah. Listen, this might turn out to be a tempest in a teapot. He learns from it. Goes on to be a great player, right? And those who pass over him might regret it. However, in the long run, if you have that mentality, I'm not taking this guy, right? You'll be right more than you're wrong, right? Because those red flags are there for a reason. And I'm not a guy that's like that. I usually am like, that stuff's overblown or whatever. Now, this is a big, big red flag to me,
Yeah. Yeah. He's that's knocks a guy out and he's a felon and geez.
It's so like such a bad decision. It defies logic, right? That he did it. But one of my things I've said in my whole life, there's very few absolutes, but here's one of them. Once an asshole, always an asshole, right? And I described that to my son one time. I said, let me tell you what that means, okay? So Tony DeAngelo, despite all the incidents over the years, almost lost his NHL career, got chance after chance. He was warned, one more incident and you're done, right? And what happened? He got it, and he got into it. You would think logically, oh man, why would he do that?
Yeah.
Why? Because he can't control himself. Listen, I don't want to call him an asshole because he's a nice guy and all that, but my point is that that was inevitable. Okay,
right.
A guy like that doesn't think the way you and I think. Oh, I can't do it. I don't want to lose my NHL career. He'd already almost threw it out the window 3 times, right? He didn't learn and that's the concern about guys like that. Maybe that's overblown, and maybe this will be a wake up call to him. But you know what? I'll let somebody else take that chance.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, one of the players who's supposed to go in the top 10 is Caleb Mahotra, who's Manny Maholtra's kid.
Oh, right.
Player. I don't want anything to do with him just because it's bad karma, man. When they took Maholtra, they took him way too high, right? Neil Smith was an idiot and overvalued him, and then just talked him up. He was a 3rd line, 4th line guy that they took as if he's going to be a stud center. So his son might end up being that, but it's bad juju, man. Brings back bad.
You're talking about Manny Malhotra.
Yeah, Manny Malhotra.
Now
usually don't know that Manny Malhotra. Towards when the Rangers, after they lost Messi and Gretzky and went in to a quote unquote rebuild, their first pick that they had, it was in I forget where it was, top 10 somewhere, and so they were starting their rebuild, and Malhotra was the kid they took, right? And at the time, scouts said like they took him way too high. He shouldn't have went there. Neil Smith talked about him like he was the future of the organization. He's a stud player. They're going to build around him. And I remember Muckler at the time was, trying to tell Neil Smith, he's the coach, that he's not that good. He's the 3rd liner. That's what he's going to be. And that's what he ended up being. Neil Smith not only misevaluated him, didn't listen to everybody else and said he wasn't a top 10 pick. And not only was he not 10 tip, then they promoted him, as the future of the organization. It puts this kind of pressure and responsibility on him that he was not talented enough for, just because they took him too high, So,
right.
And now his son's going to be a top pick. He might turn out to be Wayne Gretzky, but
you never know.
Like bad memories,
Maybe the Rangers will pick him. Who knows?
Yeah, he's a good hockey player from what I read, but he's more projected to go like 8th, 9th, or 10th. But centers, centers go higher than they're supposed to sometimes, because everybody wants one.
Right.
But we'll say.
All right, so we got. We're running.
Randy Schaefer was there this year, but that didn't happen. But anyway, what else we got?
We're almost towards the end here. Do you want to throw in some high school hockey or what?
Yeah, well, listen, we're getting into the fun season, right? The short playoffs started the other night. Brick beat Mid-North, right? Yeah. My phone blew up, and North went into their usual litany excuses. We were flat. We were this. We outplayed them. As I said to my friend, you say that like every time you lose, you say the same thing. So you know what they call that? A pattern. And by the way, it was not an upset. Okay, so people looking at it in the North like, oh, it was an upset. No, it's not. Okay, because they're pretty much at evenly matched teams, right? It's a type of game where if you play bad, you're not ready for it, the other team's going to win, okay? And I warned my friend, Chris over it. I said, so I texted him and said, oh, the seedings came out. The good news is you got the number 1 seed in the Shore Conference over TR. Bad news is you get Brick and they get Mid-South. And, I said, don't take them lightly, okay? Because they can beat you. They're that good. They're legitimate. And North came out flat for some reason, which is bizarre, whatever. And Brick beat him in a close game. But that's what happens when you don't play well. Like, it wasn't an upset. They're a good hockey team, right? And people underrate them because they don't understand them, right? So, they're a blue-collar, in-your-face team, right? That's gritty. They're deep, right? And they play with a confidence level that borders on, delusion. And I say that as a positive. It elevates the game. They are not afraid of anything, right? And some will call it cocky. People don't like them. I call it confidence. And let me tell you something. They'll fight you in the parking lot if they have to. You could bring 400 soldiers, and they'll fight you anyway to win a game. That's the type of team they are. And here's what says why North lost, okay? And if you remember in our preview, I said, one of the reasons they lost, I said they have the talent, right? But they have to change their mentality and understand what it takes to win. Okay. So I didn't know. It was a couple hours after the game. I saw a post online. Dougie Nickel, our friend, posted and tagged me on it. Hey, Jeff, come on, man. You got to put Brick back in the top 20, And, and I said, Dougie, I've got my feelings hurt a little bit because I think I've been the biggest Brick supporter here, like you're being a little unfair. But anyway, Cindy Acropolis commented, that's why you don't leave my nephew alone in front of the net, right? And I hadn't seen the game-winning goal. And when I read that, and I was like, you know what? I comment back, said, you don't leave your nephew alone anywhere on the ice. He's a stud, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you can't account for Brady Acropolis in overtime and you left him all alone in front of the net, okay, that's very telling about why you're not going to win. If you can't, that's the one guy, right? You got to be accountable for it all alone in front of the net of the game winner. Like, it's those type of things, the lack of detail. And then I went and watched the goal. It was like watching a virgin in a whorehouse running around with a fistful of dollars, right? Like, because they were all over, no structure, no discipline. They didn't know where to be, and they were terrible. Their coach doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't hold kids accountable. And now for 3 years, they haven't fixed these problems. And it's coming home to roost. They have a good team. They got a very good goalie. They got good defensemen. They got good forwards, but they haven't been taught how to play. They have no system, right? Their coach just lets them go on, and it's too late now. You can't put something together that you don't know how to do, right?
And you're talking about Middletown North.
I'm sorry. Right. Yeah, I should have segued over that. Brick was best, and by the way, okay, here's the other reason why they lost. About an hour before the game ended, I didn't know what the score was, but I said to a coach in the shop, I said, I think Brick could win it. He disagreed with me. I said, but in the end, my prediction is North is going to meet TR in the finals, and whoever plays better that game is going to win. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. I predict them they go right out and lose. But what I'm talking about leaving somebody wide open in front, right? Brick doesn't do that. Okay. Yeah, they make mistakes. They're not as talented as Mid-North, right? But they play, they don't make a lot of mistakes. They play disciplined hockey. And I've said this over and over again about it. I told this to them. If you don't figure out a way to stop giving up, the amount of goals you give up, okay, you're not going to win. And they shouldn't be giving up those goals. Their goalie's too good. They have a good enough defenseman, and they have the forwards who should be, possessing the puck, which would, theoretically, protect, give the other team less chance of scoring. But because when the other team does have the puck, they're running around their zone. They have no discipline, and they turn it over too much by shooting it over the net. They don't keep possession, right? And I blame it on their coach, right? Because anybody who's watched them play sees the lack of discipline and the lack of winning hockey, And now look, right now, I'm sure if they're listening to this, they're, oh yeah, here he goes again. I got an answer for you. Like, here's something very simple. Prove me wrong. Okay? Prove me wrong. You don't like what I say. I know that. And I said in a comment to somebody today, you guys don't like what I say. No, I said it to a friend of mine in a text, like about the parents. They don't like what I say. You know what? But you know what they're really pissed off about? I've been right. Prove me wrong. Right? Go ahead. You don't like Brick bragging because they have an issue with that, which is ironic. Then you know what? Go beat them. Right? And then guess what? You don't have to worry. So don't complain about What I'm saying is not personal. These are legitimate criticisms. And by the way, or legitimate analysis. I make sure to talk to other coaches to see that they see what I'm seeing. So maybe I'm not, missing something. And I know they try and say it's personal. It's not. It's just the truth. For some of my friends, I'm doing a favor by telling them the truth. But that's that. Del Barton looks like the kid, the alpha dog. Mo Beard, who had been undefeated, number one, they lost 2 games this week, close games. Tom's River plays tomorrow night. Marlboro is going to play. I think they're going to play. They're next up for Brick. The winner of that game will play probably TR in the finals, but they got a game tomorrow. And in the South Div playoffs, my buddies over at St. John's Vander's had a rough year, rough year. So much so they got moved down to the South playoffs. Scored 2 goals in the 5 to 35 seconds in their first round game over Freehold Borough and won 4-3. So, so maybe they could get on a run in the next 2 days and salvage their season by winning the Dowd Cup. I'll be rooting for them. Westfield continues to roll. They got beaten by the Barn, but they're beating Highlands tonight. They won the Union County tournament. They played Livingston Friday night. And you want to know, here's the mark of a good team, okay, and a winning team. They were down 2-0, Looch, and they looked totally flat and lost. And they came out in the third, right, and just took it right to Livingston and scored 4 goals and won and turned the whole game around. Right. That, like I've said about CBA, a mark of a good team is they find a way to win, right? And they took total control of that game, and that comes from the confidence and playing in a certain way, and it's something very few teams have. So hopefully that'll mean a state championship. We'll see. Randolph is the team that I've always thought is their biggest challenge. I think in the end, I think Randolph's top to bottom is a little deeper and better than them. Though Westfield beat them, but Randolph had just ripped off 8 wins in a row, right? And they had lost a lot of games because they couldn't keep the puck out of the net, right? Well, they figured that out. They stopped giving up goals. They won 8 in a row. And then St. Joe's and Metuchins beat them 3-1. And, I wrote a post on my forum yesterday that I overlooked St. Joe's, how good they were. And I went back and, a friend of mine told me, Jeff, that's a legitimate win. They're good. And I went and looked at their roster, and I'm like, you know what? He's right. And I said it in the forum. I overlooked them. And they're good too. So,
yeah, nice.
Gloucester Catholic, you boys there. There's no hope for them,
No.
So Tuesday night, hopefully we'll be able to go to Howell and watch Brick play.
Yeah, I'd definitely be into that. We'll have to look into that for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll hang out with our boy Dougie Nickel. He better be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him after. You give me this shit. I'm going to be there. You better be there, brother.
Yeah. well, we gotta wrap it up. I know Steven's got to get out of here, and we will talk some more NHL and high school hockey next week, 8:00.
Sounds good. Good night, everybody. Have a good day.
So appreciate everybody listening, and we'll catch you guys later.